Episode 98, Noob Spearo podcast. Justin Lee, what the hell's going on? It's crazy. We've nearly done 100 episodes of the Noob Spearo podcast, and it's been fantastic to have some of you along for the full ride. I know, talking to a couple of people, they've listened to every single episode of Turbo and I dribble on with fantastic guests from all over the world. And we just dial in on their tips and tricks and advice and wisdom and all their stories and lessons learned. And it's a great place to come if you just want to catch up on some stoke. And if you're in traffic, then what better place to be than listening to the Noob Spearo podcast. So welcome along. Today we are interviewing Justin Lee from the Big Island of Hawaii, and he's got a fantastic story. I didn't even realise it till after the show, but he grew up and he suffered from neuroblastoma cancer, and followed his dad out into the water from a young age, and just loved it, fell in love with the water, and his story is very much one of gradual progression, but some of the competition hacks and mindsets and ideas and just the ways of thinking about it come through loud and clear in today's interview. There's definitely some actionable stuff that you can take away and apply to your own spearfishing and just stay stoked. He's just the top bloke. But before we get there, I wanted to hook into some shout-outs. Now, North Florida shootout from May the 1st to May the 5th. It's a fantastic tournament. Noob Spearo sending along a couple of prizes. So if you want to get along and get hold of a copy of 99 Tips to Get Better at Spearfishing, maybe some of the other fantastic prizes that sponsors are putting up, head along to the North Florida Shootout from May the 1st to May the 5th. If you want to find out a little bit more about the tournament, I'd encourage you to go along to northflshootout.com, and you'll find a plethora of information over there at northfloridashootout.com. In other news, Castbox reviews. Now, I just got an Android phone. I switched over from iPhone. It's gone. I've got a new Pixel and downloaded Castbox because I like this app, but I found a couple of reviews buried in there that hadn't mentioned on the show before. Adam Price says, awesome podcast. Every episode has some gold in it. Trent Conitzer says, great podcast, very informative and fun. Leonard Van Eerden said, great podcast, very informative and loaded with actionable stuff and just the right amount of Aussie banter. I'm a Kiwi, so I only take a small amount of offence because I live in Australia. So, but thanks to that, Leonard. All good reviews. In other news, there was a drowning down in North Otago. I believe it was a couple of guys drowned gathering seafood off Kakanui. What can I say? It was a dangerous day. It was hectic conditions, and this guy and maybe two of them drowned. Horrible stuff. So yeah, be aware. Dive to your conditions. I'm not saying anything bad about these guys. People drown. Stuff happens. But sad stuff. If you don't have a spearfishing club, I would encourage you to join one. Now, noobspearo.com. If you head to the homepage, there is a link up in the menu. You can go to Spearfishing Club Connections. It's got a whole list of spearfishing clubs, and I'm slowly gathering more and more and more of them. So if your club's not in there, I'd love it if you email me, Shrek@Noob and I'll put your club up. You'll see what information I need by going to the page and having a quick look. So that'll be fantastic, and I'd encourage everyone to join a club because they're fantastic, not only for lobbying governments to make sure they protect our fishing rights and help us manage it, but also a great place to connect and learn and develop your skills and meet a big network of other like-minded spearos. So definitely do that. I had a bit of a brain fart the other day. It's, a lot of guys are diving with reel guns these days, and I would love to see a float that could possibly position itself directly above the diver, and I thought you could do that with all the technology we've got going on now with GPS, that you could fit like a small Minn Kota type motor to a float, and it could potentially just stay above where the diver with the reel gun is. Now, I don't know how feasible this idea is. I am not going to pursue it with any sort of budget or seriousness, but I was just wondering if there's a solution for that. So I'm just chucking it out there on the airwaves, seeing if someone wants to get hold of it and use it, because I think there could be a good market for a float that has this ability to follow a diver to some extent anyway. But don't know if it's stupid or whatever. But anyway, I thought I'd put it out there. Noob Spearo podcast review on iTunes. Daniel McKay says, excellent podcast. I'm new to spearfishing and found the new Spearo podcast a few months ago. I've read the books and articles, watched YouTube videos, and have to say that I have gotten the most out of listening to the new Spearo podcast. The host, Shrek and Turbo, ask great questions and are really I don't know, funny, fill in the blank, I guess. But thanks for that, Daniel. Good review, man. 99 tips to get better at spearfishing on Amazon. You can get the softcover version on there, and the hardcover is available in quite a few retailers. If you want to get the softcover, you can get it on Amazon. Simon Clark says, great read. Some great advice for all Spearos. I highly enjoyed and recommend this book. Take what you need from it and enjoy yourselves. Cool review. Last but not least, such a great resource. I'd like to thank these two guys for creating this series. There are very few, if any, freediving Spearos where I'm at. I started freediving spearfishing over a year ago, but just recently found the podcast. My wife has joined me in this new world, and thanks to this series, we have grown so much more confident, I think. It's from Kezagon 1. So from the US. So thanks for that review, man. Awesome. It's great to hear that the podcast is helping, Spearos from all over the place connect and learn some good information. But look, I want to hook into this interview with Justin Lee and enjoy. Let's hook in. Today's Dynamite Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you by spearfishing.com.au. That's right, the fine folks over at Adreno have been supporting the Noob Spearo podcast since about episode 18, and they help pay the bills around here. Just want to encourage you to check out spearfishing.com.au and use the code Noob Spearo. You can save $20 on every purchase over $200, but it's just a great online shopping experience. The reviews are phenomenal. If you want to check out a new spear gun, new pair of booties, new pair of gloves, someone's used them before, they've written a review, it's on their website, it's all there there for you. Head along to spearfishing.com.au and thank you for shopping with today's major sponsor, Adreno. All right, cool. G'day, Noob Spearo community. Today I'm joined by Justin Lee, fireman, father, all-around character, and I've already had a pretty good chat listening to him before we started recording, and it's a real pleasure to have you on the show today, Justin.
Hey, aloha. How are you guys doing?
Aloha from the Big Island.
There's a little bit of a change, though. I'm not a firefighter anymore.
Oh, aren't you? What are you doing now?
No, so my dad and I do a dryland reforestation project here on the Big Island. And we focused in on making an essential oil we call Royal Hawaiian Sandalwood oil. And all the proceeds and everything that we've been making thus far has been gone back into putting up, I think we've erected over 7 miles of fences, put in over 10 miles of fire breaks, and have planted thousands and thousands and thousands of new trees.
Oh, wow.
Into the forest. Yeah, it's an amazing place, and it allows me to be outside and walk around. I still have my EMT license just in case something happens. Yeah. But no more firefighter work. No more running into fires for me. Just allows me to say yes to a lot more trips and a lot more spearfishing competition opportunities. Oh,
that's cool. Cool.
Yeah. So it's gone really, really well. So it's been for about a year and a half now.
Okay.
So it's been a little bit of a transition, but it's great. It's really, really great. And I got a little boy on the way, so I'm pretty pumped on that.
So you'll have fires to put out at home with two little ones.
I've got my daughter will be 2 here in a couple of months, and she puts a lot of fires out there. That's for sure. Little girls are easy, they say. They're mellow. No. My daughter, of course, is the exact opposite of all of that.
Yeah. And you spend a bit of time hunting there, and you get around and do a little bit of hunting on land and beneath the ocean. I'm looking forward to sort of digging into that in this interview. But tell us sort of how you got started spearfishing.
I got started spearfishing following my dad, like I think a lot of us do. My dad was the superhero that didn't wear a cape, and you just wanted to follow him everywhere. Followed him into the woods hunting with a bow and arrow, and of course that love of adventure took my dad into the water, and I was right there with him. And I think just like a lot of progression for a lot of kids nowadays, or it seems like back in the day, you started off as bag boy. You drug the stringer around, and and that, allowed you to see what kind of fish you're supposed to spear and what kind of fish you weren't supposed to spear. And then I remember that I got my first 3-prong or pole spear, and then no fish was safe after that. It was. I remember my dad speared a Japan flag, which is like it's an eating fish, but it's not the best eating fish. And out here in Hawaii, my dad put it in a tidewater pool for me, and I'd put it on one side of the tidewater pool and full on hunt it to the other side and spear it and throw it on the other side of the tidewater pool and full on stalk it and hunt it. And I mean, this fish is dead for an hour now already, but to me, it was a 300 kilo marlin on the other side of the pond that needed a spear in the head. So yeah, but I think growing up, that's what it was just trying to be like my dad, and I loved it. And eventually got a spear gun in my hand. The first time I speared a fish with a spear gun, I couldn't even load the spear gun myself. My buddy had to load it for me, and but it was a little parrotfish, and I just loved the ability to be able to shoot stuff that was just a little bit bigger than what I could get with my pole spear.
Yep.
And and then growing up, of course, you want to beat your chest like everybody else and go after bigger fish, and so picked up a real spear gun that I could load myself, and I guess the rest is history. I just fall in love with it. But now that I've gotten to spearfish, kind of all over the place and speared some nice fish. Been blessed enough to spear some big fish, and but there's days that I just love picking up my old 3-prong and jumping in the water and spearing fish the size of my hand.
Yeah. It sounds like something special about living in Hawaii too. Like some of the tastier fish you guys have seem to be smaller, and I think maybe that's the same everywhere. I'm not sure.
It's here in Hawaii. That's a friend of mine, Ryan Myers, which is a pretty accomplished spearfisherman from Florida.
Yep.
And he comes out here and he's all like, "That's why you Hawaiians are such good at spearfishing. You guys' aim has to be perfect, or else you guys miss your fish completely." And they all have master's degree in spearfishing already. So, when we were in Greece, they were saying that the fish are so smart in the Mediterranean that when you're driving your boat over, they know exactly what kind of motor you have on, what inflatable boat you have on. And you jump in, they know what kind of fin and spear gun you're shooting. And by the time you're halfway down, they know your name, they know your school, and they know the history of who you are.
So you need every advantage you can get.
Definitely. But yeah, here in Hawaii, one of my favorite fish to chase is what you picked up when you were little, and it's a fish called the yellow-eyed pole. And even to this day, it's still one of my favorite fish to eat. And it just brings you back to your roots. That is just a good part of growing up here in Hawaii.
It sounds like your dad really nurtured your stoke, and a lot of your spearfishing was marked by this gradual progression. Like you started young with a pole spear, and it sounds like from before the show, your breath hold was kind of the same. It was just your entire spearfishing has just been this slow and steady progression. Is that how you sort of see it?
Yeah, definitely. So for a while, my dad and my mom took us up to lived in the mainland. So we didn't do any spearfishing or any breath holds or anything like that until I came home when I was 10. And that's when really started spearfishing back. Was at 10, 11 is when I got my first pole spear. But just slow and steady. And my dad always put that thought in your head: if you're not moving forward, you're standing still. So didn't want to stand still. Had to always try and push forward.
So can you remember anything you sort of struggled with while you were on this sort of journey and steadily improving?
I think the biggest thing was, because for me, it was being really comfortable in the water. And I think from swimming as a little kid in a pool back and forth, that helped get comfortable. But I think the biggest thing was that my dad and my uncles were so good, and I hated being the guy that couldn't carry my own weight. Whether I was 12 or 13 years old, I'd spear a fish and I'd be stoked, and I'd swim up to my dad and I'd be like, "Look," and he's like, "Sweet, congratulations," and being as supportive as dad as can. And then I'd see his catch and I'd see my uncle's catch and I'd be like, geez Louise. And so, it just, it set the fire underneath. But the one thing I think that made me more frustrated and confused more than anything, out here looking for octopus, or we call it taco or he'e, out here is a big part of spearfishing, as we enjoy eating them out here. We've got a bunch of local dishes that are always a constant on the dinner table in a lot of the houses out here, and so finding octopus was always a big thing. And we would be diving and my dad would see them and point them out to me, and I'd sit on the surface just in complete baffled state of what the hell is he looking at. And then he'd go down and the reef would move, and I'd be like, oh my God, there was an octopus right there. There was one time where he's like, go get the octopus. And I'm like, where? And he's like, it's right there on the coral head. And I mean, I'm like 11, 12 years old, and I thought my dad was playing a joke on me until he went down and basically made it change color with the tip of his spear. And then I went down and speared it. And, I was just so baffled that you could see octopus and like that, and with ease that my dad did. And I remember for every time we would go diving, whenever you got into an area that kind of felt like there was octopus around, I would spend majority of my time looking for an octopus in there. And, every now and then we get lucky. And that's the reason I have an octopus tattooed on my shoulder, is because those times when I was younger and I couldn't see him, and when I finally did, it was such a prize to catch. And, it's such a fond memory of diving octopus with my dad and my friends and everybody else that I've gotten to dive with, that it's huge.
Yeah, man. It kind of started making me think about, like finding fish and finding crayfish and finding octopus. Sometimes when you're doing it, like it seems like if you're single tasking, like if you're just hunting octopus, they're easier to find. But if you're spearfishing, hunting octopus, and looking for crayfish or lobster at the same time, you kind of do. A couple of them maybe don't get, they get neglected. You miss opportunities. Is that what you find?
Oh, for sure. When people ask me to go get octopus for a graduation party or a baby party, I have to leave my spear gun in the truck. And the day that I found more octopus than I've ever found was a day that I forgot everything, every spear tool. The only thing I had in my truck, believe it or not, was an arrow. And so, and that day I was in and out of the water in an hour and a half, and I had, enough for the party. And I remember thinking, I was like, geez, this is what I got to do, is because it's so true, is, the tunnel vision. If you've just got one task at hand, it makes it a lot easier. But just like everybody else, I think that spearfishers, we all suffer from a little ADD.
Yeah.
And so, all of a sudden there's a squirrel that runs past, or a silver flash off in the distance, and instantly your game is done for looking for octopus. Now you're trying to chase the job fish that's on the edge of the reef, or looking deep into caves because all of a sudden you found some crayfish inside. So, yeah, definitely. When I found my daughter is stomping on the roof above me. I don't know if you can hear that.
I didn't pick up on it.
She's lighting fires right now.
There's that
18 pound, or she's 24 pounds now. How a 24-pound baby can make so much noise walking, I don't know, but she finds a way.
They're wired for attention, man. I was going to say, there's that old hunting saying, a man who chases two rabbits catches none. I guess it's the same in the water when you're, either going for lobster or octopus or whatever. You've kind of got to just do one thing well.
Definitely. And lucky for me is I don't do a lot of things really well, but I do a lot of things. So eventually can capitalize on some things. So that's good.
Yeah. Okay. What's one of the most memorable fish you've ever taken, man? You've had a few.
It's all, yeah, it kind of just all depends. For me, it's the fish are great. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love spearfishing. Like I've gotten now to go chances to spearfish in Panama, and I've gotten some big tuna, and I've speared some decent sized wahoo here and there, and some big goatfish. But one of the most memorable fish would be my first job fish. We call it uku out here. And growing up with a pole spear that's 6-7 foot long pole spear, it was just kind of just out of reach most times. And and I remember I speared my first job fish, and I was so stoked, and it was literally maybe a kilo. I mean, it was a tiny one, but I was so pumped. And I don't know if I was more pumped on the fish or more pumped on calling my dad and saying, "Hey, Dad, how do I cook an uku?" Because, growing up, like that was the biggest thing was, oh, now we got an uku. It's just such a prized snapper out here in Hawaii that, and I remember my dad's all like, "What? You got one?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Did you get it with your 3-prong?" I was like, "No." He's like, But, that was just for as far as memory wise, that's got to be one of them. But for me, it's all about, who you're there with, even competitions. Like I love competitions, and I'm the middle of 3 boys, and with my older brother, my younger brother. I mean, we used to have competitions about who could stay the quiet the longest, and or who could run the fastest to the gate, or who could eat the most cereal in 5 minutes. Whether it was always competition, but it was always the competition with everybody else more than what we were doing, the task at hand. So like spearfishing competitions, I love them. I love the preparation. I love the scouting, the diving. I love it all. I love meeting the people at all over the places. And so like for me, what's the most memorable fish? It's hard to say. But I can tell you some memorable trips that I've been on with some great people. I've got a group of friends that go down to Panama every year. This will be our 3rd year going down. And I mean, it's amazing. The fishing is off the hook. The fish is crazy. But I don't think it would be that great of a place if I wasn't there with the people that I was there with. And I gotten some big tuna, don't get me wrong, that bucket list size fish that are memorable, but and I still could probably play you every sequence of that dive to get the fish, but the smiles and high fives with everybody else just makes that fish that much more enjoyable. And
it's a really good point, man. So like with the people you go away on trips with, what makes them so great to hang out with? What are the qualities that make for, just good people to? Because I mean, some trips, are always marked by stuff happening that you didn't expect. So I guess, you do want good people around you. So for you, what are the qualities and characteristics you like in your dive buddies?
Just people that are genuine. People that are just happy to be there, happy to be a part of the voyage. And like people always ask, "Well, what's your biggest fish you've ever speared?" Or and for me, I can tell you the weights, but the weight of the fish really, because you get that judgment. Like say my biggest giant trevally is 40 pounds. People are like, how is he a good diver if his biggest giant trevally is 40 pounds? And so there's too much emphasis on that end prize. And so when we go on trips, what I really, really love is when we get a bunch of guys together that are there for the experience. And, and that's a big, big part of it. And that are friends in and out of the water. And they're genuinely happy for each other, for experiencing different things. And, we just lost a great, great ambassador to the sport of spearfishing, a guy named Mike Hong. And he was one of the guys that I loved going on trips with. We did some epic, epic trips. And he was one of those guys that was stoked just to be there. And he was not weight driven. He was not species driven. He wasn't anything driven other than having a good time. And, like we went to Australia a couple of years ago, and we went down there a week before everybody else that was planning on being down there, and we were planning on diving out of South Mission Beach with Rick Batua. And of course, we get down there and the weather is just crap. And, we couldn't even jump in the water. But that week that Mike and I spent there, I mean, we explored all over the place, and there was just rain. And, 90% of the people that I think would plan a dive trip that upon getting there got stuck on land and weren't even able to leave the harbor.
Yeah.
The trip would have been a bust. But with having a guy like Mike Hong, and it was just he and I, we still lived it up. We still had a blast. The smile was still a constant. And it just goes to a testament of, who you want on your trip is good people that you're going to have a good time regardless of the weather, regardless of the fish. But when you do get the fish, the high fives are just as high and the smiles are just as big.
Yeah, no, he sounds like a mad dude. I saw a lot of tributes to him on Facebook, and his good mates. He looked after Larry from Penetrator, who I think sponsors you as well. And if Larry says nice things about someone, then I genuinely believe them. And so he sounds like a mad dude. He'll be sadly missed, but I think that's a great recipe really for people to go on trips with. I mean, let's move forward a little bit. You're talking about uku and jobfish. I mean, part of the joy in taking even a 1 kilo one when you're starting is, I guess, the stalk and developing a strategy and all these sorts of things. How did you sort of put that together? To what are some of the more difficult species you've had to develop strategies for?
I think here in Hawaii, the creme de la creme of difficult fish to spear would be the uku and the mu, which is the large-eye emperor, I think they're called down there. But it's just because they're so difficult, and most times they're found in a little deeper water, and so you have to be a little more cautious on your movements more than anything. And we touched on this before we started talking on the podcast, but I'm an avid archery hunter, and I love hunting on land. And what land hunting allows you to do is observe animals and watch their mannerisms and their movements, and kind of just allows you to read their body language, but the comfort of letting it take a long period of time. Where in the ocean, you kind of have to be a little more keen to it, faster, to allow you to either move in their direction or move and hide a little better. And here with mu and uku, I mean, you can chum them up, and you can, with the gray snappers, at least the uku, you can chum them and get them pretty comfortable around you with food around. But I love spot and stalking them. I love getting into an area where I think they'll be, and lying down and just trying to outsmart them. I think with some of the bigger, more smarter ukus that I've got, I've actually, had to kick out in the middle of a sand pocket, throw up a lot of sand, and then swim just short distance away from it and hide underneath a pile of rocks or hide underneath a little overhang, and let their curiosity bring them to the puffs of sand, with nobody around, and it allows you to ambush them that way. And that's my favorite. Yeah, is if you can kick up some dust, within 10 feet of a crack, and then completely get away from where you just kicked up, and allow them to approach the cloud of sand without a human lying in the middle of it. They usually are a little more curious, and it allows you off to the side a little bit more movement, allowing you to hopefully execute a better shot.
Okay, cool. That's a really good trick, man. I mean, everyone throws sand up, but not everyone thinks to kind of leave the area a little bit. So I like it.
In Portugal, the fish are pretty keen on spearfishing and spearfishermen, and they're pretty smart as well. And so the littlest movements gave your position away, and in a half kick of the tail, they were gone. And there it was being able to notice their movements with having swivels on your spear guns. When you move your gun, even if you move it slowly, that swivel sometimes will tap on the barrel. And having them react to that. And it's just, every place that you dive is going to be a little different. But if you can pick up, my uncle told me a long time ago, he's all like, every person you meet in your life has a quiver of arrows. And it's your job to take good arrows out of their quiver and add them to your quiver.
Yeah.
So that at the end of the day, you've got, a quiver full of great qualities of the kind of person you want to be. And if you take that, that same motto into the ocean, and every hunt, you learn a little bit from, and, you take that straight. I was like, oh, when I dusted this way and I laid a little still, I got this result. I definitely want this arrow. And so, when you're in a situation that you've tried 3 or 4 different arrows and it's not working, you still have a few more tricks or arrows in your quiver that hopefully allow you to bring dinner home.
Yeah. It's that advice seems to have stood you in good stead, man. You've dived with some phenomenal people all over the world and got some really good results while you've been doing it. Have you got any of those arrows that you hold tight, like some tricks to the trade that you've picked up from unique people that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing, before any tricks or trades that can be discussed is wherever you go, listen to the local people. Don't be a yeah but guy. And what I mean by a yeah but guy is, when someone's trying to tell you, oh, I find the crustaceans, or I find the fish here in this, and I find that you do that. Be like, yeah, but I've learned from somebody else this way. Don't be the yeah but guy. Just say yeah and listen and take it all in, whether you agree with the knowledge that they're trying to pass on or not. But just being a nice guy and listening and and taking everything they say to heart, allows you to form relationships with people that are local there, and eventually will teach you their tricks and trades. I think relationships with people is the start of any good fisherman, I believe. But some tricks of the trade, I think, hiding is the best way. Hiding, I think, if you can work on holding your breath, whether you're diving in 10 feet or 100 feet of water, if you can just find a good hiding spot, because the fish are naturally curious. And if they see you and then they don't see you, they're going to come in and investigate. And if you can, move slow. That's slow, hide good, and I think, and execute a good shot. A lot of people, before they go hunting, or before they go hunting, they sight in their rifle or they sight in their bow to make sure it's shooting correctly. I think there's a big miss opportunity for a lot of spearfishermen to go out and put a float and spend a lot of time making sure that you know where your shaft is going. Yeah. I think a lot of people will buy a spear gun, go in the water and pull the trigger and think, oh, why did I miss? Yeah. Shit, you didn't even practice with it.
I just had a massive lesson on this from this gun engineer. He gave me a huge lecture about this several times, and you know what I did? I still went out and I didn't sight it in, and I've done a lot of hunting as well, sort of the same as you, and I'm used to sighting in a rifle, there's no way you want to injure animals and stuff like that, and yet with spearfishing, we don't do it, man. We just, it's always too hard. So we go out, hopefully we just shoot a few fish and get our eye in, so to speak. And then, but
I think that's what, you hit the nail on the head. There's so many times you're just like, I'll just go practice on some fish. Yeah. And then, of course, that fish of a lifetime swims up and you blow it. Yeah. And you're like, what? And it's so easy for us to point at the gun, be like, oh, it's the gun's fault. Yeah. I hate this gun. It doesn't shoot straight. It's nothing like my other gun. Yeah. Well, it's nothing like your other gun. So go shoot it to make sure that it's shooting correctly.
Yeah, it's really good advice, man. And I finally got my my gun shooting exactly where I want to. and then the flopper didn't engage, and I lost it. I lost a 45-pound fish of a lifetime, and then I shot through a parrot, and the shaft actually snapped where the flopper pin goes through. So it's like, like I finally got it accurate because I was too lazy to shoot it in, and then I, by then the flopper was playing games with me. So live and learn.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah,
definitely.
100%. All right, cool. We sort of had some good info there on hunting. I mean, what about the other end of the spectrum, like toughest situations out on the ocean? What are some of the hairier moments you've had out?
Probably the scaredest I've ever been in the ocean, and was one day I went to go night diving out here, and it was with a guy that I had known, but I didn't know him. Now we're really, really good friends, and we spent a lot of time on the water. But he's not much of a diver; he's more of a fisherman. And he wanted to have some lobsters, some crayfish. And so he's all like, let's go. I got the boat loaded. Let's go. I was like, okay. So we're leaving the harbor and the wind is howling. And I was all like, oh. He's like, don't worry. It'll be fine. I was like, yeah. We, just like in anywhere else, you when you've experienced quite a bit, you feel you get an additional blanket of warmth, even though the weather is not too inviting. You think that you're the high macho guy. They're like, oh, I've experienced this already. I'm good to go. And when you should probably be listening to your inner self going, stay at home. But so we went out and we charged out there, and he dropped me off on this ledge in the middle of this at the middle of this bay. And this ledge went from about 10 or 15 feet to the abyss pretty quickly. And we've picked up a bunch of lobsters there before. And so he dropped me off, and the wind was pretty strong, and I'm diving along, and I see a big lobster, and I went down to go get it, and I actually turned off my light. And when I went to try and turn it back on, the switch just spun in circles. Didn't even turn my light back on. And my buddy dropped me off and went to go fishing. He went fishing, and so I'm sitting there in the dark because I'm too expert of a diver to carry on a spare light in my pocket. And so I'm sitting there in the dark, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I see my buddy realize that he doesn't see my light, and he starts coming in. And, there's a part of me that's like, okay, I should swim to the boat. But there's a part of me that's, the boat now is, 200 meters away. And I was like, well, do I swim to him? Do I risk getting run over by him? Or do I just sit here? And so I just started sitting there, and I could see that he started doing little circles where he dropped me off. And I started screaming as loud as I could his name. His name's Asa. And he said that he could hear my voice, but he had no idea which direction it was coming from.
Yeah.
Because the winds were blowing like 30 to 35 knots. Oh. And so he's doing these little circles, and I'm sitting there in the complete darkness going, when do I start swimming to shore? Because, it's like when you get lost in the woods, right? You just stay in one place. I guess when you're spearfishing, you're not really staying in one place because the current's taking you. But that was my thought. It was all like, well, if I stay here, he'll probably find me. If I see his boat drive off, and then I know I've got to start heading into shore. And, but we were probably 2 kilometers off the shore. Oh, wow. So
it's a good swim.
I was like, okay, I've got a good, yeah. And the crazy thing is, about 2 months prior, there was an article in the local Hawaii fishing news about how they tagged 14 tiger sharks outside of this bay. And so that's like playing in my head. It's like supposedly where they pup because of this huge bay. It goes from deep water to shallow water. So the tiger sharks pup in there so that the younger sharks can have shallow waters to kind of grow up in. I don't even know. But I mean, it was such a long time ago. And I remember just drifting there. And then lo and behold, we finally find each other about 40 minutes later. And when he picks me up, I'm in 80 fathoms of water.
Oh, wow.
So, it's at 480 feet. I don't know what that is in meters, but
Yeah.
it was past Wahoo Lane and was drifting further out to sea. And but that 40 minutes was just like, oh my God. My buddy was all like, he was already starting his speech on what he was going to tell my dad.
Yeah.
I lost your son. I don't know what to do.
Man, those moments are scary.
Yeah, it was just a freaked out moment. Because, when it comes to sharks and stuff like that, you can see them. Maybe it's the false sense of security by being able to see them.
Yeah.
And maybe I've just never had any really, really scary, hairy moments with sharks. But no. But at the end of the day, I would rather swim with sharks than with big eels. That's for sure. I hate eels, man. Those things freak me out.
Yeah, that's scary. Just with your situation, what were your takeaways from it? What did you learn?
Have a spare light.
Okay.
Definitely key. Have a little light in your hand. Don't night dive by yourself. That's another one. If your buddy is going to drop you off with a boat, make sure he's within shouting distance. And if your gut is saying, maybe you should stay in bed.
Yeah.
90% of the time, your gut is telling you correct.
So listen to your intuition as well. All right.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. No, definitely some key lessons there. I mean, another thing you guys could have done is have an arrangement for what to do, because sometimes I guess the boat searching for a diver with no light is probably a recipe for disaster as well. But I mean, there's not a lot you could do. I mean, you could say like, you stay still and I'll swim to you. I mean, it's a difficult situation, man.
Just go back to where you dropped me off and just stay there. I'll come to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of lessons learned on that night for sure. And one was to make sure you got extra baby wipes for your wetsuit.
So no wonder the tiger sharks left you alone. You were just a big. They're
like, that smells like crap. I ain't eating that.
Yeah, they weren't that hungry. Guys, head on over to penetratorfins.com. They are proud sponsors of today's Noob Spearo podcast. We're happy to announce a code you can use to save yourself $20 on any blade purchase. That's right, save $20, pump in the code Noob Spearo at checkout, penetratorfins.com. Save yourself some dough on some fins and get yourself some of the best fins going. Larry's the man. Thanks, Penetrator. What's up, Shrek and Turbo? It's Jeremy here from Spearing Magazine. You guys have been doing such a killer job. I just wanted to let you guys know that all the back issues are now fully sold out. So if you guys want to get Spearing Magazine, though, we've come up with an international subscription just for you guys. You can get the digital edition or the print edition. We're going to ship that to you guys. Just get over to spearingmagazine.com. Okay, guys, keep doing what you're doing. Jeremy out. God bless America. God bless President Trump. I love you guys. Let's roll forward. What about funniest experiences? Surely you've dived with some characters over the year, and I'm sure you've had a few.
What is that? My friend Kylie. One of the very first times that we ever dove together, and Kylie Umeda is one of the. I mean, when it comes to spearfishing, she's got to be the best woman in the world, I think, spearfishing wise, and just at least in my book, one of the top 10 best divers in the world. I mean, she's accomplished and speared everything, and she's young and she's little, but anyway, we were diving out here one day when we first met, and we swim into each other all the time. When you're diving with a buddy and they look focused, you just swim as hard as you can and just bump them like a big shark would and just freak them out. And with Kylie that day, it was just doing that. It was just, she speared a fish, and I snuck up behind her and pulled the fish out of her hand. And, basically cried wolf the whole time, that whole dive. And sure enough, right before we get out of the water, I speared a big parrotfish for my neighbor. and we were looking for it because it ripped off, and we're both breathing up on the surface, and this massive tiger shark. I mean, it had to have been 12 or 13 feet long, just round as they get. And she just swam, and it was me, Kylie, which was probably 4 or 5 feet away from me, and she was maybe 10 or 15 feet away from her. And I was like, oh, and I looked at her and I pointed behind her, like, there's a shark behind you. And she looked at me and flicked me off and stuck her tongue out. And I was all like, shook my head. I was like, no, 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 no. Behind you is what is that? I just pointed behind you, and she looked. And by the time she looked, she and I were side by side. And I mean, the tiger shark just swam past us, and we couldn't stop laughing as we were swimming back in. And we got back to the shore, and she's all like, see what you want to do when you cry wolf? The wolf is going to come. I was like, I'm sorry, won't play that game anymore. And then another really funny time is, so like on the Hamakua coast over here, every entry in the water basically is a cliffside. And, when I first started doing competitions, was the U.S. Nationals out here, I think in 2014 was in Kona. And so we had kind of the who's who as far as spearfishermen go out here. And I never competed before at that time at any level. And, I shot my same Rob Allen spear gun for the last 10 years, had plastic blades, and and invited a few of the guys that I met at the competition that I thought were legends, and I still believe they're legends. Just reading in the Hawaii Skin Diver magazine, and it was John Barretto, Mike Hong, Spencer Haskins, this guy named Mike Jutt, and Cowie Brown. And, there's 5 guys that I've looked up to, since I could basically move to Oahu and was spearfishing. I was like, I'm going to take these guys diving in my backyard. And I was tickled. And so I wanted to take them to one of my more favorite spots. And I was like, oh, so they all met at my house, and we went. And I was like, I got to stop at my buddy's house to get a ladder. They're like, a ladder? I was all like, yeah, we needed to get down the cliff. And so we show up, and it's a 40-foot extension ladder. And we put it down, and I'm carrying it down halfway down the cliff to where we can't go anymore. I extend it out, put the ladder down, and I tie it off to a big tree. And John Barretto, unbeknownst to me, is scared of heights at this time. And so we're climbing down the ladder, and Mike Hong and John Barretto are the top 2 guys at the bottom. And John Barretto gets on, and I shake the ladder a little bit at the bottom, and he clinches onto the ladder, and he's all like, no, 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 no. And so Mike Hong just started laughing hysterically, and he started screaming, no, 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 no. And, and since that day, we've all become really, really close and really good friends. But whenever there was a group of us that we did something we didn't like, the no, 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 no came out. And, it was just one of those classic dives where, we got some epic fish, and we got some pretty awesome pictures that Mike took of that dive. But just climbing down the ladder, seeing this legend of a guy, John Barretto, get scared because of the heights and a little wobbly ladder, will make that dive just one of the best, funniest dives ever.
Yeah, that's good, man. That sounds like a great experience. You've had a few of these funny stories.
That's the beauty of spearfishing, you know what I mean? Everybody thinks it's all just when you're in the water holding your breath, but 90% of the story is cruising with your buddies outside of the water, and whether it's the beers you're drinking after the dive, or the fried chicken, or the burrito you're trying to convince your buddy to eat before you dive, knowing that it's just a gut bomb while they're diving.
So recently you got over to New Zealand. I wanted to hear a little bit more about your experience over there. What did you think of the New Zealand diving?
New Zealand is amazing, man. I've been there now, I think 2 times. And, man, the life around New Zealand is just ridiculous. And the people down there are freaking second to none, too. Dwayne and Jackson, the Shields, they're just really, really good guys. Warren from Hex is an amazing human, all about having fun and experiences. And, we've got to dive up in Tutukaka with a guy named Luke, dove the Bay of Islands during Interpack. And then we also dove Great Barrier Island and Mercury Island during the New Zealand Nationals. And there is so much fish, man. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's so much fun.
I saw you shot a couple of nice snapper. Did you get a good kingy as well?
I did. We were getting, I think the biggest kingy I got down there, I think was during the competition.
Oh, nice.
The Interpack a couple of years ago, yeah. But they cap it out, so shooting a big kingy really doesn't do you any good. That's the beauty about the New Zealand Nationals and the Interpack. The way they set it up is that they want you to have a variety of fish, not just the big fish. At the end of the day, to be sitting in the top few places, you've got to really show that you're good at what you're doing, because anybody can get lucky and shoot a big kingfish. Don't get me wrong, they're strong and smart fish, and you've got to do all the right things. But that doesn't take away, if the person that comes in with two big kingfish, the guy that comes in with a medium-sized snapper, a medium-sized terraki, medium-sized kingfish, I think at the end of the day shows that he's a better spearfisherman, because he can hunt all these different fish, not just shoot one fish with one really big fish. But shot a really nice one in competition at Interpack. So that was really cool, and the fish taste so good. They taste so good. We were in Tutukaka, and I got swarmed by a vortex of kingfish, and just picked out one and that I thought looked a little fatter, and he had 12 koherus, I think they're called. They're like the blue runners bait fish. Yeah. Had 12 of them in his stomach.
Oh, wow.
And
that's why he was fat.
When we were filleting him, the oil was on top of the knife, and the sashimi was so good. And then we smoked it, and it was just everything was so good.
So with competitions, I mean, you bring up an interesting point. What's kind of like you've gone in Greece, Portugal, New Zealand. You've dived in these competitions all over the world. How do you sort of put together a strategy? Do you rely a lot on local advice?
You try not rely on as much local advice as possible. But I think the only way to really get an idea is to get up there and scout and do it yourself. And so just to allow, enough time for you to be able to hopefully encounter as much of the weather differences that you'll get, whether it's a stormy day or a clear day, flat water, rough water. Because on competition day, you could do 1,000,001 different weather conditions, and just try and get ready for whatever it will be, because the fish, just like everybody else, even on land, if it's warm, if it's choppy, they're not going to be in certain areas. Where it's flat, they're going to be in these areas. And just to try and build a playbook as much as possible. And the biggest thing is, I think, your whole time while you're scouting, you're trying to build a game plan, but don't stick to that game plan like glue, and be able to have the flexibility to change. Because of maybe the second to last day of scouting, you go and check one more place and it's got a lot of fish, but I know friends of mine that have dove, they're set in stone. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start. I'm going to go here first. And then on their last day of scouting, just to make sure there's spots, they go and jump in at another spot. And all of a sudden there's a lot of fish there. And but they're so stubborn in their first game plan that they don't want to move away from it. I think just being flexible and being able to, on a dime, change up your ideas, but don't get too complicated.
All right, I like it.
Simplicity, I think, as far as game plans, is the best. And don't leave fish to find fish. I was going to say, I don't know if that makes any sense, but
No, it kind of does. So, like, if you've got like a couple of species in one area, maybe you've already shot one of those species, you would stay there because there's probably others around, or is that kind of what you mean?
Um, for me, yeah. Well, it kind of, I guess it all depends on the structure of the competition as well. You know, with the inner packs, you know, because it's a species tournament where you want to have as many species, I think go after the easiest fish first and don't spend so much time on a hard fish, and then go and pick up your harder fish. Because a lot of times I think people always say, okay, I'm going to go get my snapper first. And because in New Zealand, the snapper are pretty hard and it takes some time, you know, and if you put too much time into shooting a snapper, you don't leave enough time for the other 7 fish that you could have speared when now you've only just got one snapper where you could have had 7 others. But if you started off shooting the easier fish and worked your way up to the hardest fish, you know, you go with the guarantee points.
So some comps are on boats, some are sort of from shore. What's your favorite format?
I love swimming. You know, that's why I love the New Zealand format for their nationals so much. Is that it's you all start in a common area at the whistle. They say go, and you swim, and you have to come back to the initial starting spot again. And I love that. I love because on a boat you can breathe up. You don't have to be physically as fit as a guy that's swimming all day.
Yeah.
You know, in New Zealand, you're fighting current, breathing up, and then trying to dive 30 meters and lie on the bottom and shoot something. Where, you know, on a boat, okay, the current is going here. Boat pick me up, drop me off at the side of the current, and I'm just going to drift it through and do dives. You know, and like that's why the guys in New Zealand, I mean, like the Canada divers, like Dwayne. I mean, that guy's a beast.
Yeah.
But that guy, you know, that's what he does is he fills up huge bags of kenna and swims them around.
Yeah.
You know, that guy's legs, I mean, I would hate to be kicked by that guy. You know, that guy's legs are amazingly strong and his lungs are used to the burn, but still being able to function. And, you know, that's why I love it. This maybe sound a little brutish, but it's the manly way of competition spearfishing. You know, it's the kick as hard as you can and hold your breath.
Yeah.
And I'm going to race you to that spot.
Yeah. Now there does sound like a lot about that. So your strategies kind of keep things simple. Go for the easier species first, and then move out to the more advanced. What about your equipment? Do you change anything from regular diving to competition equipment?
It all just depends on what kind of fish I'm diving for. Was that my trusty go-to gun is a 115 single roller aim right rage with a 70-meter reel on it. I've shot everything from little 1 pound or half kilo fish all the way up, but it is a bigger gun. So in in Portugal, the fish was overkill. It was too big. You know, however easy it is to maneuver under the water, you know, that's 115 centimeters off of your arm that is extended out. So it's like a 2 meter long pole that you're trying to move through the water quietly and try not to bring too much attention to. So there I was using, 100 centimeter to 90 centimeter guns, depending on water visibility. The U.S. Nationals this year is going to be held in a lake, in Lake Mead. And, the water visibility there on a good day will be 2 meters.
Oh, wow.
And so if you've got a 115 centimeter gun, the tip of the gun's going to be in the murk and you're not even going to see it anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So it kind of depends for me, on what the conditions are like to what kind of gun I have. So like when I compete, you look at where it is, but I always have at least a 90. I always have a 90, 100, and then my single roller goes with me everywhere. Whether I use it or not, it goes with me everywhere.
Okay. Some guys, the the big sort of comp guys here, and I think Dwayne's the same. They use just an old school gun with just standard double rubber sort of configuration, or even a single rubber configuration, so it saves on reload time. With a roller, obviously you got double wrap most of the time, and a reel, it adds a little bit more time to your reload. Is that kind of what you find? Is it worth the trade-off?
I do. So that goes to what the conditions are going to be like as well. In Greece, where in 5 hours I pulled the trigger 5 times and got 5 fish, or 5.5 hours. The time spent on the surface, the rule of thumb was depth in meters divided by 5 is how long you had to stay on the surface. So if you're diving 55 meters, you're staying 11 minutes on the surface before your next dive. And so having to reload and say it takes 30 seconds longer, it didn't really play a big role into that part. However, in a lake where we shot 100 carp in 5.5 hours, I would never have used a roller or a double wrap or anything, because the fish weren't very smart. And so you just use a single roller. I mean, a single band, traditional gun, simple mind thought. But, at the end of the day, you have to be very, very comfortable with your equipment. So if that gun takes you a long time to reload, why does it take you a long time to reload? Or is it because you're just so used to your old gun? For me, the single roller, my 115, I can reload that thing just as fast as I can a double band regular gun. What is that? I don't get the same accuracy or
range,
smoothness, I feel, out of my old traditional gun as I do my single roller. And I've shot it now for 4 years, and I feel like I've taken it apart probably 1 million times and put it back together. And so I feel like, if it starts to feel a little different, or it starts to act a little different, then I know I've got to change my shooting string, or I've got to put something wrong with my shaft or my barb or whatever it is. And I think, before you go into a competition, especially one of the caliber of Worlds, that you're spending all of this money to travel internationally, to have a place to stay, time away from home, time away from work, that you owe it to yourself and to the people that are supporting you to not allow simple things like your equipment get in the way of you doing well.
Let's go through your full dive bag though. So sort of head to toe, what's your go-to gear?
Well, like you said, penetrators. I like the penetrator fins. I use a medium stiff penetrator blades for them. I have a stiff pair of theirs, but you have to have some big legs to kick them.
Yeah.
I used them when I was in Greece.
Okay.
To kick up from the bottom, and for me it was, I didn't want to have a fish lodge themselves into a crack, so I used those stiff fins to help me basically horse the fish up. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, I don't know what it is, but the medium stiffness blades from Penetrator are amazing, and they're made with such durability mindset that I've put them up to everything, and they've never chipped on me or broke, and so you really can put your trust into them.
Yeah.
And then my wetsuit, I've been wearing a Hex wetsuit for a couple of years now, and they're great wetsuits. That carbon fiber weave inside of them allows it to be a little bit more durable. I've rubbed up on coral reefs and everything like that, and they're great.
I chatted with Warren as well, and he sort of said you get a temperature advantage. Do you find the weave helps trap the warmth a bit more?
That as far as the warmth goes, I don't really know. I don't tend to get cold in the water because I've got a layer of wetsuit on that's just always with me.
Yep.
So, if I was a little skinnier, maybe I would notice a little bit.
How much do you weigh?
The last time I weighed myself, I was 232 pounds.
Ah, yeah. No.
So,
and how tall are you?
105, 5'11".
Ah, yeah, okay, yeah, you're a robust unit, that's for sure.
Yeah, I like to use the word husky. Okay, there's more to me to love.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing is you go to these spearfishing competitions and everybody are little people.
Yeah.
Like all of the Europeans, lucky if they break 150 pounds and are 6 feet tall. I think the only other guy that's relatively stocky is Dwayne, and he's an animal. And I think he's just stocky because his weightlifting regimen of lifting up kennas and swimming a miles is in his advantage. And then there's a guy named Scott McIntosh, from New Zealand, and he is a beast of a man. Like that guy is scary, and his calves, I swear, I don't know how he puts them in any wetsuit and they don't just burst through. But there isn't too many big men, big women that spearfish either. A lot of them are small, skinny, petite people. So I'm just trying to fight my way for the big guys.
That's it. You're representing for me as well, man.
But the Hex wetsuit is great. My mask is, my buddy Ryan Meyer says that it's a fish bowl, but I've got such a round face for being extra sexy that those low volume masks don't fit my face very well. Yeah. And so if I smile, and I've got a tendency of smiling underwater, it leaks. And so I just go with my old faithful. It's one by AQA. It's called, I want to say it's the Naya or Nio or something like that. But the one set of things that I always make sure I have is my Salvamar green gloves. Those things I feel like I could take on the world with those things on my hand. It's like, what? Shark stealing my fish? Give me my gloves. I got this.
What do you like about them so much?
Just the durability. And that Spectra, or I don't even know what they're made out of, but they're just, I feel like I can grab any lobster in a hole and pull them out and not have to worry about getting poked. And putting my hands into fish gills, never a problem.
Oh, wow.
Just the dexterity and everything like that have just always been really, really good. And they're built with a quality that I think are pretty awesome. That's the only Salvamar thing I've ever owned. But that's the only thing I ever, if the rest of their gear is anything like their gloves, then they're an amazing company. But their gloves are my favorite. Green Salvamar gloves, size large.
Love it.
Those are, and then I've got a knife that I've had now for probably 5 years. That GR Tar gave to me, and it's just your old. It looks exactly like the old or the regular Rife knife, but it's rusty to all hell. It barely cuts chum anymore. But the knife has been with me around the world, and it's got some sentimental value to it, and I'd be lost without it. So
GR Tar gave it to you. You're gonna have to keep it forever. That's the only dive I feel like to use.
Exactly.
I've got to get that guy on the show.
Yes, if you get that guy on the show, man, you might have to have 15 different episodes for him because he's got so many stories and everyone, the first time I met him, he was a good friend of Uncle Rick's, and so we went down there. So I hung out with this guy named Sasha and GR Tar, and I remember sitting there listening to these guys' stories and thinking, "There's no freaking way. There's no way." The stories that he's got are like, "Are you serious?" And then, then you live a day with him, and you're like, "Holy crap, that was some gnarly stuff." And it doesn't even bat him an eye, and you're like, "Shit, maybe." I'm sorry for swearing. Shucks, maybe he is telling. And then you fact checked him because you're just in disbelief, and everybody is a testament. Then. Stands by it that GR Tar is a crazy mother trucker, and and his stories are second to none.
Yeah.
But he's an amazing, amazing man and amazing spearfisherman.
Like, just while we're on equipment, I mean, have you had any problems with equipment or any really big lessons that you've learned or something a little different you do with equipment to everyone else?
With slip tips. that was the biggest lesson learned for me. I lost a really nice yellowfin tuna in Panama a couple of years because I shot it with a Spectra slip tip, and there's no sharks in Panama. Whether it was over sharked or what it is, there's just no sharks, so there's no concern about it. So you didn't have to use cable. But I shot a tuna with it, and I reloaded the gun, and a couple of days later we were drifting through, and I didn't check my gear. And that was the biggest fault, is check your gear and bring extra Spectra, bring extra tips and stuff like that. Just because, I mean, you don't want to have the excuse of, oh, why did do this and why did do that? Most of the gear that is available now, the only error 90% of the time is user error. And, so as far as stuff has failed on me, I can't say it's failed on me because of the manufacturer side of it. It's more because I didn't do my part in making sure there was no nicks in my Spectra line or stuff like that. I guess I've just been really lucky as far as not having any guns go off accidentally or reels malfunction or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think the biggest lesson I learned when I went to Australia and we dove off the North Katu out of Cairns was that I didn't bring enough shafts.
Ah, okay.
Because you basically need a shaft a day at least.
Oh, wow.
Because you guys have so much big fish,
you
know, and so, so many of my shafts bent just from normal everyday, just, shooting. I shot a sweet lips because I was in Fiji a couple of years ago, and the sweet lips was like a prized fish.
Yeah.
I was down in Cairns, and I had this monster sweet lips come up to me.
Oh,
I was like, oh my gosh, and I shot it. And I freaking, of course, all missed the stone shot, and all hell broke loose. And I brought it to the boat, and they're like, "What the hell did you shoot that for?" I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "It's a sweet lips." Yeah, no crap, it's a sweet lips, but why'd you shoot that thing? That thing is garbage.
Yeah.
I was like, "No." I was like, "We ate this thing in Fiji. It was good." No, that's vermin. You don't eat that. There was a guy on the boat. His name was. He was a silver gorilla. I forget what his name was, but vermin. He's all like, "No, mate, that's vermin.
That's vermin, mate."
Yeah, that's vermin, mate. I was like, what? I was so bummed. Yeah. And of course, that bent my shaft to pretzel. But
what shaft are you using? Is it 7mm or?
Before, it was a 7.7 mil. Just those South African shafts. But now I use a Dean Kerwitz hat. It's a Affliction. What is that? Shaft out of California.
Okay.
And he makes great shafts. He really, really does. And he's allowed me to put a personal touch on my shafts. I put a little hashtag Justin Lee Daily Stories on it. Follow my barbs.
Oh, no.
So
that sounds cool.
So you're sitting in there, and you got you go on a boat trip, and you're just looking for your shaft in a big, everybody usually puts their shafts in a tube of some sort, and when you need a shaft, you just go and grab it, and of course they all got rubber stoppers on the top, but you can see the barb so they don't get stuck on the bottom. And just make sure that, hey, that's my shaft, bro. That says Daily Stories on it. Yeah. Don't touch my shaft. You can touch my shaft, but you can't touch my shaft.
What's the name of the guy that makes them again? I'm going to link it up.
His name is Dean Kerwitz.
Dean Kerwitz. And what's the name of the company?
Affliction.
Okay, cool. And are they stainless, or what's he making them out of?
I know they don't rust.
Yeah, you got right into the technical details there, Justin. I love it.
Oh, not Affliction. Sorry, Vector. Shafts. Yeah, VECTOR. Okay. I think it used to be Affliction, but now they're Vector.
Okay, cool. I'll check him out. That sounds good. I think I've seen one of his videos, like his process for making them and stuff. He looks pretty cluey. So
yeah, he makes amazing stuff.
I'm just going to order a batch of Lee Stories shafts.
Do it.
And
go put a bunch of shafts. Put noob all over them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Noob shafts. And
noob.
Yeah. So when you got out on the Norcat 2, was that a good charter out there? Obviously monster fish and some funny dudes, but did you enjoyed it?
Oh, I had such a blast, and I think it was, it goes to testament to who the people were on the boat. Those two guys that run it, Troy and what's his brother's name? Yeah. Anyway, so those guys are amazing, dude. Like, we had such a fun time on that Norcat 2, and then it had a couple of Aussies on there. So we had Jay Dean, which is and Chris Brunham, photographer guy. Jade is from the north side. And we had Rick, and we had two of his old buddies, old crusty guys that are just old school spearfishermen that are just a blast to be around and made fun of you. So they tell me, they're like, Justin, I was like, you come from Hawaii where you've got 7 or 8 really prized fish when you're lying on the bottom that you're really trying to hunt when you got a spear gun in your hand. And they're like, out here, you've got like 100 fish.
Yeah.
And he's all like, but everything's edible. And if we can't, we'll turn it into burley. I was like, okay. He's like, so just shoot a fish, come up. And if we say yes, yes. If we say no, come up, we'll chop it up. We're doing the burley. So when we do our blue drifts, I was like, okay. Every time I shoot a fish, I come up to like, what the hell did you shoot that for? That's vermin. I'd be like, you guys said shoot whatever, and we'll talk about it on the thing. He's like, that's vermin. No. I'm like, what? So, and then we had myself, Kimmy Warner, which is an amazing human, her boyfriend Justin, which is another amazing human, and we had Mike Hong, and I was the 10th guy to round it out, and we just had amazing times. One of the coolest non-spearfishing things, in the middle of the night I had to pee at like 2:00 in the morning, and we anchored off in some bay. I don't even know where we were at. And so we anchored off, and I went to go pee off the back of the Norcat, and there's steps in the back of the boat that lead down to the water. And I went back there, and each step had hundreds of just little 3-4 inch sardine looking things. And I was like, what the heck? Because there was a light sticking on the water. So I threw a handful of them back over water. And as soon as they hit the water, there was a bunch of jacks sitting in the back of the thing. And I was like, no way. And so I just started throwing them over like Skittles. And it was just feeding the fish hand by hand. And then all of a sudden, a big trevally came through that was probably 50 or 60 pounds. And I was like, holy snakes. And so I ran inside, and I woke up Mike Hong, and Justin woke up as well. And I was like, bro, you guys got to check this out. And we started throwing, and it was just, you were hand feeding this 50, 60 pound giant trevally off the back of the boat. It was epic. Yeah. And it was really, really cool. And then I caught a seabird. That was pretty, one of the birds was on the top of the boat and snuck up to it. I think Chris was the one that bet me $5 that I couldn't catch it. And had to prove him wrong. So climbed up to the top of the boat and caught it. But yeah, it was such a blast. I mean, the food was so good. The beers are cold, and they had a flash freezer on the boat. So when you speared your fish, you filleted them up, put it in bags, and froze it, and got it ready for your trip back home.
Awesome!
I took back so much fish. Some finger mark, some goldies. Those is fabulous.
I haven't had one yet. I've heard they're really good.
Oh man, they're really, really good. But talk about Australian legends. I met Tim McDonald up here.
Yeah.
Father Tim. That guy is a legend, man. He's got some amazing footage. And I mean, one night I went down. Mike Hong took him out to dinner, and I met up with him and stuff. And we went back to the house that they're staying at, and it was like, no joke, I was like a kid meeting, like a high school kid meeting his girlfriend or his first crush. Yeah. And he and I just sat up like all night talking, diving, and looking at videos till like 3:00 in the morning. And the same until my wife called me. He's all like, where are you? I was like, I'm sorry, I'll be home in a little bit. An hour and a half later. I'm like, I told my wife I was leaving like 10 minutes, 2 hours ago. So I got to start moving. He's like, yeah. And then another hour goes on because he starts talking about this other spot. And then we start, the conversation I had with him that night was pretty memorable. And we didn't even get in the water. And might be one of my favorite dives I've ever had.
Yeah, no, he's obsessed, that guy. We've had him on the show and a couple of other people you've mentioned as well. But yeah, chatting, sparing with guys like that, you can talk all day and all night. It's good stuff.
It's crazy. And, we didn't have a lick of alcohol in between both of us, but I swear we were both drunk. Just giddy, talking stories and laughing. And it was good. It was really, really good.
Adreno Spearfishing are today's proud sponsor of the Spearo podcast. They stock a huge range of equipment that you can find in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and now Perth. That's right, spearfishing.com.au have got a huge range of gear. I encourage you to get along. Use the code Spearo, NOOB SPEARO, and save yourself $20 on every purchase over $200 when you shop online. All right, cool. Hey, last part of the show, Justin, is a faster paced round of questions. Spearo Q&A. What is the single best piece of advice you've been given spearfishing?
The best diver is the diver having the most fun. As simple as that. So many people are, they put so much emphasis on the biggest fish or world records or doing well in competition. If at the end of the day you're having a blast, and that's all that matters, man. The ocean is there for us to have fun in it, and don't think too much about missing a fish or not getting the place in a competition, but just put an emphasis on the memory of being there with good friends.
If you had to start out all over again, would you do anything differently?
Yeah. I'd have my dad pull my bag for me instead of me pull his bag. But no, I think, I'm sure it's just a generic answer. You learn so much, and my growth in spearfishing is still slow, and it's still a growing process, and it's still a growing plan. But it was all such a gradual move forward that, you couldn't have put the left foot in front of the right foot if you didn't do what you did the first step. I don't know if that makes any sense, but every step along the way, you learn something new that gets you to where you be, where you're at.
That's good. That's good advice.
I think there's so many people out there that first thing they want to do is get into spearfishing, so they go and buy the most expensive spear gun out there, a pair of the most expensive fins and stuff like that, and I think what you really got to do is just go out there and enjoy it, and slowly move forward. With a pole spear, it allows you to hunt fish, learn from people, dive with people that have experienced, and just pick up as many, like I said earlier, as many of those straight good arrows as possible and put them in your quiver.
Yeah, nice. It's a good concept, man. What current improvements are you trying to make in your spearfishing, and how are you sort of doing that?
For me, it's breath hold. And being comfortable at deeper depths. The next World Championships we just found out is going to be in Italy, so it's going to be another really deep dive, and so that's a big thing. And trying to get, and the only way to really work on that kind of stuff is working on myself physically, and all of my teeth are sweet teeth. And it's a battle that I've had ever since I was little. So I love candy and cookies. And I think that down in New Zealand, in Australia, you guys have that purple box of just a mixture from the flukes to the crunchies to, the mundies.
Moro
Golden
bars.
Gay times.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff, what I'm trying to work on is my diet more than anything.
Yeah.
To get my body into shape that it needs to get into, to be able to do well at depth again, and hopefully, do well enough again, not again, but do well enough to let the world know that there's some pretty talented spearfishermen in Hawaii and in America.
Yeah, awesome, man. All right, last question. You've been to some pretty special places all over the world. Where haven't you been that you would love to go next?
I would really, really, really like to dive South Africa. People talk about how crazy it is, but I hear there's some big fish. And the challenges of diving down there is a challenge. The big fish, big sharks, rough water. But I think just the adventure of getting to South Africa would be really, really cool. But it seems like there's always a new place that seems just as awesome. Like Qatar, Kuwait, supposedly the diving out there is supposed to be unbelievable. I haven't done too much in the South Pacific, and I'd like to chase some big dogtooth tuna. I heard that fish is second to none as far as just epicness. But there was just always a draw to South Africa that I don't know what it is, but it just feels like it's calling me, and I want to go out there and I want to check it out.
All right, cool, man. Hey, Justin, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Like, there's plenty of gold nuggets all through this chat, and I'm sure people have got a ton of value out of it. The quiver concept's cool, just borrowing ideas wherever you go. It's really cool. Hey, where can people find you, man?
Follow me on Instagram.
Okay.
My handle on Instagram is the easiest way. It's at BigIsleBoy24. So BIGISLEBOY24.
Okay, cool.
And that's the easiest way.
I'll link that up in today's show notes, and so that's an easy one. And what's the reforestation project you're working on?
It's called Haloaina, which is HALOAAINA.com, and it's on the south side of the Big Island. It's just under 3,000 acres of some pretty amazing dryland forest, and it's a lot better today than it was yesterday, and I can't wait to see what it is tomorrow.
Yeah, awesome, man. I'll link some of the stuff up in today's show notes, so if people just want to type in Justin Lee Noob Spearo, that'll come right up, and it's been a pleasure, man. Anything else you got coming up in the near future?
I got my trip to Panama coming up, and I'm just really, really looking forward to Italy in 2020 and seeing some of the old guys that I met in Greece and some of the relationships that I've made out there and see them again.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, all the best for that as well, and let's stay in touch.
Sounds like a plan, Isaac.
Justin Lee, what a champion. Give it up for him. Go and connect with him on Instagram, Big Old Boy. And I'll link that up in today's show notes. If there's anything that got mentioned today, just head along to newspearo.com and you'll find that in the latest interview section if you scroll down. And he's a champion. I love the competition insights, particularly about maybe it's common sense, but obviously scouting, is just having that time in the water, in the area, learning what works in different conditions and tides and so on. And then really having a strategic species list and maybe crossing off the easier ones on the list first before you move on. Cool idea. Particularly if you're competitive, like the middle child, like Justin. But yeah, what a fantastic guy. It was awesome to chat with him today. In a fortnight, that's 2 weeks, we are headed off to talk with Tim. Tim's from New Zealand, and he has only been spearing for a year, but you'd be surprised. He's learned a hell of a lot in 1 year. The biggest part of this interview is dedicated to taking on anxiety and fear and confronting it. And he tells some awesome stories and gives a hell of a lot of advice about internal ways to manage, the flight response, and just an absolute champion. It's a really sort of open and honest interview. Really cool. Mad tips. Tim Caverman. So look out for that. Episode 99. Jeepers, 100 is just around the corner. And if you love today's podcast and you like the Noob Spearo podcast, you've been listening for a while, love it if you could come along to patreon.com/Noob Spearo and get on and back us. There's 3 levels you can support the show at: $2 an episode, $5 or $10. And we've got about 7 patrons now, and it's growing every week. I'm super stoked that we've opened up Patreon as a great way to sort of crowdfund and keep the momentum going with the podcast. So check that out, patreon.com/Lee Spearo. Thanks for joining me today, guys. As usual, your love on social and reviews always helps. I'm out. Today's Noob Spearo podcast is also proudly brought to you in partnership with penetratorfins.com. Get on there, guys. Have a look at some of the designs they've got. They've got clears. The blacks are beautiful. Check out the Noob Spearo custom Occy print. It's mad as well. Larry's got a full range of wicked designs, and he's got a beautiful finish on his fins. He's recently updated his manufacturing process. It's even better than it was before. He makes some of the best fins in the world. He offers a full international warranty, and to make that offer even sweeter, pump in the code NoobSpearo at checkout and save another $20. Penetratorfins.com. Support the Noob Spearo podcast by shopping with our sponsor.